Welcome to Archetypes of the East. Today we're looking at Hexagram 47, oppression, exhaustion, and adversity. Oppression pertains to times of great difficulty, restrictions, or outright exhaustion from difficult circumstances. While the main premise seems distressing, the Oracle has guidance on seeing oneself through the difficulty and cultivating a newfound resilience going forward. A season of major limitations, hardships, feelings of being trapped, resources running low, or a seeker's energy being depleted is forecast. During a period of oppression, the seeker's words are incredibly important. Speaking truthfully, honestly, and with integrity, even if it brings even greater difficulty along the line, is essential here. This hexagram urges one to seek guidance from qualified connections and reject shortcuts and hollow promises. Recognize that insincere words signal a lack of substance. Adversity teaches that pain is our greatest teacher, and enduring with integrity builds up our strength. Use pain as a tool to prepare for future challenges. Now, immense moral fortitude and patience are absolutely essential. The principle of this hexagram is the strategy of the narrow gorge. Hexagram 47 represents the archetype of rock bottom. The structure is lake over water. Imagine a lake that is drained into the caverns below. The surface is dry and the fish are gasping. This is the strategy of the exhausted source. It teaches that when your external reality is bankrupt, your internal reality must become your bank. This is a season of limitations. In the I Ching, this is the trial of the great man, or the great one. You are in a narrow gorge where your usual strengths, like money, status, or influence, are absolutely useless. You are exhausted because you're been trying to solve a spiritual problem with a physical tool. The Oracle says, stop looking at the dry lake bed and start looking at the subterranean spring below. Success here is not about escaping the adversity, but about enduring without losing your inner joy. The Oracle in the original translation says, when one has something to say, it is not believed. During oppression, words are incredibly important, but they are also powerless to persuade others. If you try to argue, defend, or talk your way out of this crisis, you will only exhaust yourself further. Your integrity is not for the world to see, it is for you to hold. This is the time for silent strength rather than vocal protest. In career, this is the dry spell, where no one is buying and the budget is gone. In relationships, it's the stagnant phase, where communication has broken down. You cannot fix the drought, you can only survive it by tapping into your deepest, most honest character. The key or energy of this hexagram is dense, dry, and defining. The atmosphere of hexagram 47 is highly pressurized. It feels like the air before a storm. It's heavy, it's restricted, and it's depleting. The image of hexagram 47 states, lake over water. There is no water in the lake, the image of oppression. The superior person stakes their life on following their will. When the Oracle mentions staking one's life, it's about when everything else is gone. Resources, reputation, and energy, and all that remains is your will. This is the nuclear option of your soul. To follow the will doesn't mean willfulness as in stubbornness. It means staying true to your deepest purpose, even when the world is providing zero evidence that you will succeed. The judgment of hexagram 47 states oppression. Despite the circumstance, there can be success. Stay perseverant. The Great One brings about good fortune from adversity. There is no blame in this scenario. One should not justify oneself with explanations, excuses, or ideas because it will not be believed. In the I Ching, oppression is the ultimate training ground for the great man or the superior one. It teaches that true authority is not granted by others. It is forged in the absence of their approval. This is the strategy of the unshakable core. Some seasons of oppression are fated to occur. They are part of the natural rhythm of life. In the I Ching, the water has drained below the lake. You cannot force the water back up. You can only wait for the rains to come. The Oracle says, stop fighting the season and start mastering the self. Your success is guaranteed not by escaping the hardship, but by being refined by it. Like the superheated metal, the hammer of adversity isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to remove your impurities. Silence beats pointless talk. This is the hardest pill to swallow in this hexagram. When you're misunderstood or unfulfilled, the ego screams to justify oneself with explanations. The Oracle is blunt. They won't believe you. Not because you're lying, but because the atmospheric pressure of this hexagram makes ears deaf to words. Your only valid argument is your own personal conduct. In the realm of career, goals, and ambition, stop pitching and start building fortitude. If you are the one person who remains calm when resources run low, you become the magnet when the cycle returns. In the realm of relationships and social flow, stop seeking inner proof from others. If you can be your own source of joy in a desert, you will never go thirsty in a city. This is the hexagram of character building while in the middle of a blackout. It's the realization that your value is independent of your visibility. The I Ching says, the world has temporarily muted your microphone. Don't shout into the void. Use the silence to listen to your own highest values. You are being forged into something harder and sharper than you were before. By choosing optimism over bitterness, you prove that your happiness is not a hostage to your circumstances. Stay upright. The drought will end, and you will emerge as the sword that the next season requires. A changing line 1. Oppressed at a low point as if oppressed at the waist, sitting in a fruitless situation beneath a barren tree. One's own thoughts cause them to wander in a dark valley of self-created negativity. Look past your discouragement, or you will not find the way out. This line is talking about breaking the feedback loop and the intrusive thoughts. Line 1 is the bottom of the inner water trigram. It represents the ground zero of true exhaustion. It teaches that the greatest threat during a drought isn't the lack of water, it's the self-created negativity that convinces you that the water will never return. This is the strategy of mental hygiene. To sit beneath a bare tree implies that one has chosen to take shelter beneath something that doesn't provide it very well. You're seeking comfort in habits, people, or mindsets that don't offer any sort of real protection or sustenance. Like sitting under a tree with no leaves in a storm, your current coping mechanisms are innocuous but ineffective. They only serve to darken your perspective. The oracle says your refuge has become a cage. The seeker should remove anything that does not help them in their situation, or they may not find the way out of the adversity. The 3 years in the original text signifies a cycle of wasted time caused by ruminating on negativity. If you spend all your energy analyzing why the tree is bare, you'll never walk to the next grove over. The oppression at the waist, or buttocks in the original translation, is the feeling of being paralyzed or stuck at a low level. You aren't physically tied down, but you are mentally anchored to your own discouragement. In career, this is the slump where you blame the market so much that you stop looking for new leads. In relationships, it's dwelling on the negative until you can no longer see the potential for change. The first step out of the valley is to stop describing how dark it is. This is the line of the victim loop. It's the realization that your discouragement is a filter and not a fact. The I Ching says, you are currently your own worst enemy. The barren tree of your current mindset provides zero fruit for your future. The only reason the valley is dark is because you've closed your eyes to the exit. Stop wandering into the past and start casting off the narratives that weigh you down. You are oppressed by your thoughts and not by your reality, necessarily. Change the channel, or you'll stay here for 3 years, quote unquote, unnecessarily. Stop wasting your time. A changing line 2. Oppressed while in the midst of high comforts of food and wine. The high official or benefactor is coming with their recognition to assist. It furthers one to offer sacrifice. To go forth and leave the circumstance now would bring misfortune. There is no blame. This line is talking about staying in place in order to experience your breakthrough. Line 2 is the strong center of the inner water trigram. Unlike line 1, you aren't in a gloomy valley, you're in a palace. This is the strategy of the sustained presence. It teaches that when you feel oppressed despite your current success, the answer isn't escape, but refining your purpose. Your material needs might be satisfied, but you may still feel empty. In the I Ching, this is the oppression of the high official. You have the meat and drink, but you also have the heavy scarlet knee bands of duty and expectation. The oracle warns, do not mistake boredom or spiritual hunger for a signal to quit. If you set out, as in that could be quit your job, end a stable relationship, or pivot too soon, you'll trigger misfortune because you are walking away right before the benefactor or the good things arrive. In the original translation, the one with the scarlet knee bands represents institutional recognition. This is someone with the power to change your circumstances, but they are coming to see the person who is currently in the role or in that circumstance. If you leave to find freedom, you won't be there to receive the assistance that you need. You must offer sacrifice. Sacrifice your desire for instant relief to secure the long-term breakthrough. In career, this is the golden handcuffs scenario where you hate the monotony, but the massive promotion is being drafted for you. In relationships, it's the dry patch where you need to choose commitment over the superficial comforts of a new distraction. Wait for the official. Your patience is the sacrifice that earns the good fortune. This is the line of staying at the table. It's the realization that feeling stuck is sometimes just a side effect of scaling. The I Ching says, don't burn the bridge because you're so bored with the view. You are currently oppressed by your own success and not your failure. The benefactor here is on their way with the keys to the next level. If you indulge in the crutch of excess or flee the pressure, you miss the very help that you've been praying for. Discipline your inner want and honor your outer duty. There is no blame in feeling the weight. Just don't let it push you out of the door prematurely before your help arrives. A changing line 3. Oppressed by an obstacle that won't move, like a rock. Then one looks to grasp for support but finds it harmful, like clinging to thorns and thistles. One looks within their house and does not see their main source of help, misfortune. This is the line of ending your personal war with reality itself. Line 3 is the top of the inner trigram of water. You are at the peak of your desperation. This is the strategy of surrender. It teaches that when you fight an immovable stone with harmful habits, you aren't being brave, you're being self-destructive. The seeker may be trusting methods or other people who are harmful because they feel that they don't have a good alternative. In the I Ching, a stone is a fact of life that cannot be changed. When you refuse to accept this fact, you grasp for anything that can help you climb over it. But because you're acting in panic, you grab thorns and thistles, shady deals, toxic relationships, or self-destructive numbing agents. The Oracle warns you are trading a delay for a disaster. In these circumstances, the seeker could become so unpleasant that they isolate themselves, not seeing their partner. This is the most tragic part of the line. The partner or spouse in this line represents your primary source of support, be that internal or external. By obsessing over the stone and becoming insufferable, you drive away the only people who would actually help you endure the drought. You return to your inner house to find it vacant. The misfortune is not the stone, it's the loneliness that you created while trying to fight it off. In career, this is the struggling business owner who takes a predatory high-interest loan to fix a market shift that won't move. In relationships, it's the person who uses sharp manipulation to get their way, only to find their partner has emotionally checked out completely. Stop. Let go of the thistles. Sit in the shadow of the stone until the season finally changes. This is the line of the panic cycle. It's the realization that doing something is sometimes worse than doing nothing. The I Ching says, you're currently punching a wall and wondering why your knuckles are bleeding. The stone isn't the problem. Your refusal to stand and face it is the problem. By leaning on thorny temporary solutions, you're poisoning your future. You're alienating your support system by making your oppression your entire personality. Drop the self-destructive habits, stop the aggressive moves, and reconnect with those that love you. The stone will still be there, but you won't be bleeding while you wait for it to move. A changing line 4. The high-ranking help arrives very hesitantly, quietly, slowly, as if it were a heavy golden carriage. The scenario is reaching the limit of distress and delay. There is a slight humiliation at the awkward bureaucracy involved in the solution. There will be a saving grace and fulfillment. Line 4 has crossed into the outer lake trigram, but it is at the bottom of it. You're no longer in the abyss, but you're still feeling the impression of complexity. This is the strategy of the clunky resolution. It teaches that sometimes the answer to your problem is as weighed down by rules and status as you are by the personal crisis. The help that is on the way to provide relief is hindered by complications and protocols, but don't mistake the slowness for a lack of intention. In the I Ching, a golden carriage represents high-level resources. However, gold is heavy and carriages are typically slow. This isn't a nimble strike team coming to save you. It's a slow-moving convoy. The oracle says the rescue is structural and not emotional. It feels humiliating that you have to wait on awkward bureaucracy or awkward circumstance while you're in distress. But the saving grace is guaranteed if you don't abandon the landing strip. It is almost over. Relief is on its way, albeit slowly. This is a warning against premature despair. Because the help is hesitant and quiet, you might think that it has forgotten you or that it isn't on the way. It hasn't. The limit of distress is being reached, which means that the pressure is about to break. If you give up now because the process isn't graceful, you'll miss the fulfillment that is already on its way to you. In career, this is the legal settlement or the government grant that has been approved but is stuck in processing. In relationships, it's the partner who finally wants to fix things but has to dismantle years of complicated baggage just to get to you. Endure the humiliation of the delay. The gold is worth the wait. This is the lag of the large-scale help. It's the realization that high-ranking help has more red tape than fast friends. The I Ching says, the golden carriage of your solution is currently stuck in traffic. Don't mistake the slow motion for a no from the universe. You're in the final stretch of the drought. It feels embarrassing to be seen waiting for so long for a saving grace, but your humiliation is the last tax that you have to pay. Keep the gates open. The protocols are nearly finished and fulfillment is about to park at your front door. A changing line 5. One feels as though their social standing and ability to move are blocked, like one has endured the punishment of the cutting off of the nose and feet in ancient times. Oppression comes from a higher authority or system. Gradually, delight and joy return softly at first. It furthers one to offer humble personal sacrifice. Line 5 is the ruler's position in the outer lake trigram. It represents the climax of the squeeze. It teaches that when a system or a higher authority strips away your status and your mobility, they may have actually done you a favor. They have removed everything that isn't you. This is the strategy of radical acceptance. One could feel tested by the pressure of adversity and feel cut off at every turn. In the I Ching, this punishment isn't necessarily earned. It's the system imposing its weight upon you. You're being blamed for things that are beyond your control. The oracle says, let the status go, let the old path go. When you can no longer escape or guide the scenario, you are forced to go inward. This is where the humble personal sacrifice happens. You sacrifice your attachment to your reputation. When it mentions gradually delight and joy return softly at first, this is the most mystical insight of the hexagram. Why is there joy in this circumstance? Because once you have lost everything the world could take away, you're finally free. The oppression has reached its absolute limit, meaning the pressure has nowhere to go but down. The soft joy here is a signal that you have passed the test. You didn't fold completely. In career, this is the wrongful termination or the public scandal where your nose or reputation is cut off. In relationships, it's the final blow to your ego. Stay centered. Make your offerings through prayer or service to others. By remaining indomitable in spirit while your feet are cut off, you become a legend that the system cannot ignore. This is the line of finding peace in the wreckage. It's the realization that they can take your job, your title, and your mobility, but they can't take your class. The I Ching says, the system is currently trying to break your will. It feels like a lifelong condemnation, but it's actually a purging. The soft joy you feel is the birth of a new unshakable power. By dedication to a higher purpose, even while suffering, you turn your mountain into a mission. You are no longer a victim of bad luck. You are a profound, wise one who has survived the absolute bottom. A changing line 6. Oppression comes from lingering problems or issues as if they were creeping vines, and when one moves to free themselves, it causes pain. But if one feels regrets over past trauma and chooses to move forward with courage, there will be healing and good fortune. Line 6 is at the very top of the hexagram. In the I Ching, the top line of a difficult hexagram often signifies that the difficulty has technically expired, but the habit of the difficulty is what remains. This is the strategy of the post-traumatic initiative. When it says that oppression comes from lingering problems as if they were creeping vines, These aren't the rocks of line 3 or the mutilations of line 5. Vines are soft. They're made of lingering issues and past trauma. They only hold you because you are moving uncertainly. The oracle says the prison is now made of your own hesitation. The pain that you feel when you move is just the stretching of muscles that have been stagnant for too long. When it says movement brings remorse, this is the voice of learned helplessness. You've been oppressed for so long that you've convinced yourself that any attempt to change will just lead to more suffering. The oracle counters this. If you feel remorse for staying stuck, use that regret as fuel to set out once and for all. The only thing you should regret is staying in the gloomy valley 1 minute longer than necessary. In career, this is leaving the unfulfilling role that you've complained about for years. In relationships, it's finally cutting the twisted web of a dead-end connection. Don't wait for the vines to wither, walk through them. They will snap the moment you commit to your stride. This is the line of breaking the fever. It's the realization that recovery hurts, but stagnation kills. The I Ching says, the drought is over, but you're still acting thirsty. These creeping vines of your past trauma are only as strong as your fear of the unknown. The good fortune isn't waiting for you at the end of the path. It's triggered by the action of taking the first step. Stop struggling and start moving. Healing isn't a feeling that you wait for. It's a new start that you choose to authorize first. That concludes Hexagram 47. I hope that you liked the video if you found it helpful in understanding this hexagram. Subscribe to follow the series along, and next we're going to look at Hexagram 48, the well. See you then.